BGP Route Reflector. In this video, I'm going to talk about how we can configure Route Reflector in NixOS. It's so easy and also similar with the configuration of Route Reflector in the iOS, but we have only some differences, some little differences, and we can talk about the Route Reflector configuration in this video. Let me starting the configuration. As you can see here, we have three ASs, AS65000, AS65001, and also AS65002. And as you can see here, in AS65001 is a transit AS, and because I don't want to configure the iBGP mesh between the routers, I need to configure Route Reflector. And here we have three routers, three switches, three NixOS switches. The first is switch 2, the second is switch 3, and third is switch 5. And switch 5 is our Route Reflector, and switch 2 and switch 3 is our Route Reflectors. Okay, it's our client, Route Reflector clients, and because of that we need to configure only one iBGP neighborship between the NixOS 2 and NixOS 5, okay, and also NixOS 3 and NixOS 5. We don't need to configure iBGP mesh. Okay, let me to start the configuration of this switch. Also, in this scenario, I am going to use the Loopback interface in the AS65004 neighborship. This is an interesting and also practical scenario. Okay, let me start from the NixOS 1 or switch 1. This is the switch 1, this switch. In switch 1, we should first configure this switch for the eBGP neighborship with the switch 2. Let me start the configuration first. We should configure the switch 1 with the IP addresses conft in switch 1, and then first we should configure interface ETH11. The first command is no switch port. Also, if you want, you can change the host name. The host name, for example, switch 1. That's it. And then interface switch Ethernet 11, no switch port, the first command. Okay, converting this switch port to the routed port. And after that, we should assign IP address to this interface. So easy. IP address is 10.1.2.1 with the mask of /24. That's it. And then we should enable the interface, no shutdown. Then we have one loopback interface loopback 0. The IP address of the loopback 0, as you can see here, IP address is quad1 /32. And after that, for example, we can configure the BGP on the switch 1. Let me to show you, but for example, it's better first configure all of the IP addresses, and after that we can configure BGP. This is the configuration of switch 1. Let me to copy the configuration of switch 1 into the CLI of this switch and checking the result. Okay, very good. Now now we can check the show IP interface brief. Okay, as you can see here, we have two enabled interface, and IP addresses now are assigned to these two interfaces. Very good. Let's go to the switch 2, the configuration of switch 2. This is the switch 2, and then host name is switch 2. We have three interface, Ethernet 1.1, Ethernet 1.2, and Ethernet 1.3, and also one loopback. Ethernet 1.1's IP address is 10.1.2.2. Okay, and after that, I'm going to add two new interfaces, interface Ethernet 1.2 and also interface Ethernet 1.3. Interface Ethernet 1.2's IP address is 10.2.3.2. because of that, 10.2.3.2. That's it. And also interface Ethernet 1.3's IP address is 10.2.5.2, 10.2, then 5 and 2. Okay, very good. And finally, interface loopback 0's IP address is quad2 /32. This is the configuration of the switch 2. Let me copy the configuration and pasting on the switch 2. Okay, checking the configuration. Yes, everything is okay. After that, we can check the, for example, IP addresses with the show IP interface brief after some second. And if everything is okay, we can go to the next switch. Okay, now we have 4 interfaces, and all of these interfaces are in the up state. Very good. If you are using the, for example, emulator, it's better to copy the configuration part by part. It's easier to emulator to assign the IP addresses to interfaces or do the configuration. Okay, let's go to the switch 3. This is the switch 3, copying the configuration of switch 2 and changing some values, and after that I can use it for switch 3. Switch 3, host name is switch 3, also interface Ethernet 1.1's IP address is 10.343. Interface Ethernet 1.2's IP address is 10.233, and interface 1.3's IP address is 10.353. 10.353. That's it. And also we have one loopback interface, quad 3/32. Okay, let me copy first the first part first. This is the switch 3 CLI. Okay, now CLI is, host name is changed. Then I can copy the Ethernet 1.1 and also Ethernet 1.2. Okay, yes. And finally, the Ethernet 1.3 and also loopback 0's IP address now is assigned. Show IP interface brief. Okay, as you can see, all of the IP addresses now are available. And the next router is the router 4. Router 4's configuration is similar to the switch 1. Switch 4 is similar to switch 1. Because of that, I'm copying the configuration of switch 1 and changing some value, and after that I can copy the configuration to the switch 4 CLI. First, this is the switch 4. The host name should be converted to the switch 4. We have Ethernet 1.1 with the no switch port command, and the IP address of this interface is 10.344/24. No shutdown. Interface loopback 0's IP address is quad 4/32. That's it. And after that, in switch 4, I can copy the configuration. First, the host name and conft. Okay. And after that, the configuration of 2 interfaces. Very good. And this is the initial configuration of the switch 4. Let me show you. Show IP interface brief. Okay, very good. And finally, we should configure the router 5 or switch 5. This is the switch 3's configuration. Copy the switch 3's configuration and changing some values for switch 5. This is the switch 5. In switch 5, the host name is switch 5. And the interface Ethernet 1.1 has IP address of the 10.255/24, and also we have one Ethernet 1.2 interface with IP address of the 10.355, and also we don't have Ethernet 1.3. I remove it. Interface loopback 0. The IP address is quad 5/32. That's it. And then copying the configuration of switch 5 in this switch. Okay, very good. And finally, we should copy the configuration of Ethernet interfaces in this switch. Okay, then show IP interface brief. Everything is okay. Now we can start the configuration of the BGP from the switch 1. Let me first configure the switch 1, checking the result, and then we can configure the switch 2, checking the result, and step by step we can go on. Okay, let me start from the switch 1, the configuration of the BGP. Okay, first we should enable the feature BGP. You know that the feature BGP first should be enabled, and after that we can configure the BGP. And then the first command is router BGP 65,000. Okay, it's better to configure the router ID. The router ID is quad 1 for the router 1. And then we should enable address family IPv4 unicast, and also we need to advertise quad 1/32 network quad 1. Okay, with the mask of /32 should please advertise this route, and then we have one neighbor statement. The neighbor is 10.122, and the remote AS is 65,001. Also, we should enable address family IPv4 unicast for this neighbor.